It's AM 650's The Law Show, a comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law. Now, here's Sterling Fox.
Good morning. Welcome to The Law Show here on AM 650. We're talking family law this morning, and it's a pleasure to have a couple of guests with us from Henderson Heinrichs, LLP. New people from the firm, too. We're joined in studio by lawyers Michelle Coy and Joe Broadhurst. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Sterling.
Michelle, let's start with you. Joe, hi.
Hi, Sterling.
Oh, it's good to see you, too. Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself. You were once upon a time a corporate lawyer who suddenly found the light and now work in a family law firm, Henderson Heinrichs. What caused you to make that rather significant change?
That's right, Sterling. I made a really big change. I'd say the practice is pretty much night and day from corporate securities to family law.
Mm-hmm.
I miss the personal relationships with people. In family law, you get a lot of time with people, learning about what makes them tick, making their lives a little bit better. Corporate securities, obviously, it's not quite the same. So it's pretty exciting. It's very, highs and lows in family law that you don't get in securities and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's an amazing practice. There's lots of benefits.
It is. And it's that contact. It's the people part that you missed the most doing the computer stuff, didn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. And Joe, in your case, there was never any illusion. You wanted to be a family lawyer right from the get-go. Why?
Well, Sterling, I really appreciate that I have this personal contact, and I feel a very tangible sense that I'm helping people in their lives. And I think that a lot of areas of family law, a lot of areas of the law, you're not going to get that same sort of feeling.
As Michelle just articulated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really drew me to family law is that I know that a lot of people aren't going to interact with the legal system in a lot of places, but this is one where it is going to affect a lot of people in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think it's a place where you can really kind of help people and feel good about the work that you're doing.
Let's talk a little bit about Henderson Heinrichs, the firm. We've had Rain Henderson and Kevin Heinrichs with us on the program before, and they're very, very upfront and very adamant about something they call a client-centered practice. What does that mean, Michelle?
That means we don't have a one-size-fit-all approach to your matter. You come in, we look at you, you're a unique individual. Your relationship is unique, your children are unique, everything about you. We design a system that works for you. So we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. We have very varied backgrounds in what we do. Mm-hmm. And we make sure that you get the absolute best approach that you can possibly get for your matter.
Okay. Now, from my notes, we're focusing on family law, as I've already said, and we want to talk, Joe, about prenuptial agreements and cohabitation agreements, all the decidedly non-romantic stuff that a lot of lawyers really would like to see happen more often in advance of the marriage and the relationship flourishing and so on. What's the big deal about prenuptial agreements?
Well, Sterling, nobody really plans for their relationship to break down. And so it's obviously going to be seen as unromantic to be making that plan at the outset.
It sure is.
But one of the things that happens is that if you don't make a plan at the outset, you are signing up for whatever the law happens to be at the time that you break up. Mm-hmm. And one thing that we've had recently was that they changed the law from the Family Relations Act to the Family Law Act.
Right.
So if you don't have a prenup, you are opting into whatever the law happens to be at some point down the road. You don't have any certainty. If you have a prenup, you know what's going to happen if your relationship breaks down, and you're not sort of at the mercy of what the government is going to say the law is at some point in the future.
Yeah, good point. And I've told my guests this, friends, just a few minutes before we turned on the microphone here. I have, in my life, my daughter is getting married this fall, so as the dutiful dad, I took her aside and, had this little prenup conversation. And she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Dad, do you have any idea how incredibly unromantic you're being right now?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to marry you. I'm your father. I have to tell you about this stuff. We have to have this conversation." And she said, "Okay, now we've had it. Next." And that was the end of that. She wasn't terribly keen on it, Michelle. But in her case, young people, no major assets, no inheritances coming down the pipe, not a lot at stake. They're not, neither she or the boyfriend are bringing a lot of assets to the relationship. Does that somehow or another color the necessity of a prenup or not?
Absolutely. Prenups are not for everybody.
Okay.
They are.
So I may have been onto something here.
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
I really recommend that people have a conversation with a lawyer about whether or not it's right for them.
Oh, okay. So a father isn't good enough. You
A
got to do
father's
it with a lawyer. Huh?
probably not.
Okay, I've been trumped again.
But also what I tell people is it's not a bad conversation to have just in general, because marriages are wonderful and they are romantic, but they're not all flowers and, wonderful things. They are real serious commitments. And so having that financial discussion with your partner is not a bad thing before you jump into, the long road of marriage. And I can speak about this because I'm married. So I know this.
Right.
But yeah, it's not a bad conversation to have with your significant other. What are your expectations? Because inevitably you come from different backgrounds.
Yep.
Where maybe you treated money differently or you have different values about where to spend your money.
Right.
You may not need a prenup, but a conversation about money is probably a good thing.
And I suppose the flip side of that coin, Joe Broadhurst, is people who come to your office in distress. And part of the conversation comes around to money, for example. It's usually a major factor in a lot of dissolution of relationships. At some point, the person across the desk from you says, well, we never really had that conversation about money. We never talked about my notion of savings and our financial goals and his notion of savings. And it turns out we're light years apart. And, well, we never really had that conversation because, well, it wasn't very romantic and we were more caught up with being in love than being practical. You've heard that how many thousand times?
I have heard that every single day of my practice in family law. And one of the things that happens a lot is that people get help from their parents a lot these days. And what happens to that money is always a very big issue when people are splitting up, because they haven't really thought to themselves, is this money that is going to get repaid to the parents at some point in the future? Is it a loan? Is it a gift?
Right.
And, if it's a gift, is it a gift to one party or is it a gift to the whole family? So there's a lot of litigation that happens where people have this money coming in from family members, and they've never talked about, well, what does this mean exactly for us? They just take the money and they think, well, we'll deal with this later. And they end up spending all that money on litigation in the end.
Right. Well, I suppose, Michelle, in some cases, the parents are just trying to do the right thing here. They're just trying to, carry things forward and help out the kids. It all happens under the general heading of helping out the kids. So parents start out, they'll generally shell out a few bucks for the wedding to one degree or another. That's fine. That's no strings attached. But then, as Joe was saying, there might be a significant loan or amount of money available to the young couple for a down payment on a residence of some kind. So if it's the bride's parents who say, kick in, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000, go buy yourselves a place to live, kids. So whose money is that, Michelle? Is it hers because her mom and dad gave it to them? Or is it theirs because they're married now?
It's a loaded question, Sterling. It completely depends on the circumstances. It depends on, when the gift was given. Was it given to both of them? Was it a wedding present to both? Was it just to their son and there was an expectation that they'd pay it back? Or was it a pre-inheritance? It all has to do with the circumstances surrounding how the money was given to them.
Okay.
To determine that.
Okay, so now, Joe, I get the sense that we parents need perhaps some instructions on how to benefit our children. If we've been saving, and a lot of parents are listening right now are going, yeah, I got a few bucks in the bank. I've been waiting to give it to him. Sooner or later he's going to get married, we hope. And so there's a little lump of cash in a bank account somewhere. When it comes time to give Junior the house money, the down payment money, how do we parents present that money to our children and their significant others in a legally smart way?
Well, I think it's really important to speak to a lawyer at that stage, because if you want, you have to think about exactly what you're doing with that money and speak to a lawyer, and a lawyer can help you very easily to make sure that that money goes to your children or your family in the way that you want it to. And if you can do that at the time that the gift is, or the loan or whatever it is going to be, is being made, you have much greater legal certainty than if you're just handing the money over.
Okay, but this happens all the time, doesn't it, Michelle? I mean, parents get so excited and, wow, they're finally married. Oh, finally. We can get that money out of the bank and out of our lives, and here you go, kids, knock yourselves out. Yeah. Well, it's just not, that's not good enough anymore. I mean, it's a sensational sentiment, but legally, what's the problem here? Where are the gray areas that might be real serious problems down the road for just here's a lump of cash, go crazy?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. When everybody's happy and buying a house, the money is both of ours, and everybody's doing well. And then when a separation comes, the parents go, wait a minute, I thought you were part of my son or my daughter's future. Now that you're not, that wasn't intended for you. I want my son or my daughter to have that so they can start their own future. So things change during separations, and you find that quite a bit, that people have different recollections of, why the money was given to people or who it was given to. So, in particular, you want to, at the time the money is given to your son or your daughter, put that in writing, speak to a lawyer, make sure it's done correctly. If it's a few bucks here or there, it's probably not a big deal.
Right, but if you've got $25,000 or more you've been saving after tax dollars, I mean, this is a project that parents spend literally, Joe, a lifetime doing, setting aside a little loot for the kids. So when it comes time to make the presentation, you're suggesting that a little homework would go a long way.
Absolutely, Sterling. And, another thing that we see sometimes is that parents from both, the husband and the wife will give some money, and the money from one parent will go to buying a vacation or buying something that doesn't leave a lasting asset.
Right.
And money from the other one will go to the house.
Right.
And then a question comes up is, well, does this person get to have that house money taken back out of the house when the other one has spent all the money? So yeah, I'd say that it's really important to talk to a lawyer, do a little homework, and make sure that the gift ends up going to the person that you meant it to go to.
Well, interesting, we're looking at, and I'm going to ask you about cohabitation agreements in a second, and this is about, typically when you talk family law, you're talking about the people in the family, the young couple and perhaps children and all of that, and when the relationship dissolves, the problems that ensue. But up at the front end of all of this, there are parent issues here as well. And if parents particularly have been setting aside money for a very long time, and this is their dream come true. We finally got the little guy married. She's a terrific lady. And finally, here's the cash. Go nuts, kids. We've been working a lifetime to help you out. So off you go. All very well and good, Mom and Dad, but maybe not complete enough. Our two lawyers in the studio both say, perhaps you, with all the dough and all the best of intentions, really should talk to a lawyer before you pass over the money. Right, Michelle?
Absolutely. And at Henderson Heinrichs, we offer a 30-minute consultation for free. You can just pop in, ask us a few questions, and it's 30 minutes of your time, and you'll get an answer.
Even a mom or a dad, no marriage issues here. We're just, our daughter's getting married, and we've got some money, and we want to make sure that it all goes to the right place and ends up benefiting their relationship. So how do I do that legally and most effectively, Joe? That would be the question that they would want to ask, right?
Absolutely. And as Michelle said, they're free to stop by, and we do meet people for half an hour for free, and it can really put your mind at ease, I think, if you get that information before you make such a big decision.
Do parents do that? I suspect not enough, but do some parents sort of realize that it's, the summer of 2014, the landscape has changed a little bit. Maybe we should do a little more thinking here.
Well, Sterling, some of them do, but not nearly enough. And I see far too many parents later on down the road who think to themselves, oh, I wish I had done that when I did.
Do they want to repossess their money, Michelle? The relationship went south. She turned out to be a slunk, and now we want our money back.
Yeah.
I mean, how doable is that? Come on, you gave the money freely. It didn't work out. You lose, or do you? Is there recourse to get that money back?
It really depends on how it was given in the beginning and what it was spent on. The Family Law Act now, there's a tracing provision. So if you take that bundle of money and you put it into a house, and you can point to that house and say, look, it's still there.
Sure.
The money is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a much better chance of getting that money back. But if you took that money and you thought, oh, I'm going to go have a wonderful European vacation, then that money's gone. It's spent. So that's when Joe was talking about, it's really important when two families are giving funds to the family to balance that out, because you don't want one parent giving, the family $20,000 that's going into the house and they can trace it into the house,
Right.
and the other family giving $20,000 that went on a wonderful honeymoon that they're not going to be able to trace back out.
Right.
So it's actually really important that you think through before the money's given, before the money's spent, what you're doing and what your intention is with that money.
Interesting. So here we are still talking about the parents, Joe. This is killing me, but it's so important. So if both sets of parents have similar intentions to endow this young couple with some money, perhaps the parents ought to talk to each other first before passing along the dough.
That's certainly possible, and I would recommend that everyone involved in the circumstances talk it out all with each other, that there be a larger family-wide discussion of exactly what's going to happen.
Right. And this would be that mysterious money conversation that in so many relationships never, ever took place.
You know, what a family lawyer will tell you about relationships is communication, communication, communication.
Right.
And that is the number one thing that people need to focus on at any stage in their relationship, in any relationship. And if you're not having that money conversation, you're not communicating expectations, then how can you expect that they're going to be met?
Okay. Well, our producer, Dwayne Bishop, is suggesting we take a moment and have a money conversation with our listeners here at AM 650, as we are required to do from time to time. We're talking family law on this episode of The Law Show. Our two guests are Michelle Coy and Joe Broadhurst from Henderson Heinrichs, LLP. You can check them out, by the way, during this break at hhlaw.ca. Back with more after this.
This is AM 650's The Law Show. There's more of the show still ahead.